It's a Friday and you're welcome to the Midday Brief. Over the next 60 minutes here, some of the stories you should watch out for. It's a day after the landmark election petition verdict, and forging ahead, we will attempt digesting the ruling and examine reactions afterwards. Having stated his acceptance of the Supreme Court's verdict, Nana Akufo-Addo announces his retirement from active politics. As at yesterday, business activities in town came to a halt, but we will be reaching our correspondents across the country to give us the mood across town. Meanwhile, in international business and economic consultant Brian Tracy says yesterday's verdict is good for Ghana's economy. Well, my name is Kimini Nyamani Amano. When I return, I'll bring you details of these stories and many more. In our first story, Nana Akufo-Addo and his fellow petitioners have accepted the Supreme Court's verdict affirming the election of President John Dramani Mahama. Now, less than an hour after the ruling, he told journalists at his residence he had spoken to President Mahama on phone and congratulated him on his victory.
The NPP says, though they disagree with the Supreme Court's decision to dismiss their petition, they accept the verdict. Nana Akufo-Addo indicated he would not seek a review and stressed the need for both divides to work together in unity to move the country forward.
I've just called President John Dramani Mahama and have now congratulated him on being elected the fourth president of the Fourth Republic of our country. Whilst I disagree with the court's decision, I accept it. I accept that what the court says brings finality to the election dispute. We shall not be asking for a review of the verdict so we can all move on in the interest of our nation. I am saddened by the verdict, and I know that many of our supporters are saddened too. However, for the sake and love of our country, we must embark on a path that builds rather than destroys to deal with our disappointment.
He indicated he was taking a break from politics.
I intend to take some time out of the hurly-burly of politics, get some rest, reflect, and then announce whatever decision I come to in the not-too-distant future. We might not have been given the ruling we sought, but thanks to our efforts, we can hopefully look forward to an improved electoral process in our country.
He, however, urged party supporters to follow his lead and respect the verdict of the Supreme Court in good faith.
Well, the President, John Dramani Mahama, later addressed the nation after the Supreme Court declared him validly elected in the much-awaited verdict. Here's an excerpt. Take a listen.
My fellow citizens, my brothers and sisters, good evening. History defines us. It determines who we are as individuals, as families and communities, and as a nation. Whenever I watch images of our past, it is clear to me that it is our shared history that has guided us through our most critical periods. It has defined and continues to define our mission as a nation. In our 56 years of independence, throughout the times of celebration and the times of sorrow, throughout the times of frustration and the times of joy, the heart and soul of our mission as a nation has remained steadfast to create a free and just society for our citizens, to create a Ghana that we can be proud to hand down to our children and grandchildren and all future generations. Ghana exists today not by accident, but by providence. We exist today because of the vision, hard work, and shared determination of our foremothers and our forefathers. They built the institutions of our government and designed our very democracy with our nation's future in mind. This country, our country, has always been fueled by patriotism. It is a patriotism that is visible all around us as we rally together at football matches, as we join hands at funerals of loved ones, as we support each other, even strangers, in times of emergency and disaster. It is a patriotism that is also expressed in our everyday lives, in the respect we show for one another's differences of opinion and religious beliefs, in tolerance we display for different political persuasions, ethnic and cultural traditions. Indeed, Ghana is known the world over for the richness of our diversity and our harmonious embrace of it. We have always held fast to the fact that we are first and foremost Ghanaians.
Now, finally, it appears everybody's heaving a big sigh of relief. It's over. 8 months of election litigation has come to an end. But what's more, to most of us, we did not really get the meaning of what the president of the 9 justices, William Atuguba, read out yesterday as the final verdict, while others who may have had a fair idea given various interpretations and implied meanings on the outcome. However, Nana Akufo-Addo, the lead petitioner in the landmark election petition, has accepted the verdict, though he says he is disappointed at the ruling. President Mahama has also inclusively addressed the nation on the outcome. Going forward, we want to put things in the right perspective and deal with them as such. So with me in the studio this afternoon is Alex Segbefia. He is a lawyer and a former deputy chief of staff to help us better understand, bits of yesterday's proceedings, and then essentially what next for the NDC. Yesterday, their candidate was validly elected as president of the Republic of Ghana. But also by telephone, on the telephone would be Gabi Ochirdako. He is executive director for the Dankwa Institute. And when he joins us by the telephone, would introduce him into the conversation. For now, I have Alex Segbefia with me. Right, good to see you. I think it's the first time I'm meeting you, and
that is correct.
I'm happy to see you.
Good afternoon to yourself, and obviously to all your viewers as well.
Absolutely. But what are your thoughts on yesterday's proceeding?
Well, I think that once again, as everybody said, Ghana came up trumps in the decision that was made yesterday. Lots of things happened yesterday for which we can give credit to all parties. Firstly, the judges came out and gave their judgment. It was received by all. Shortly after that, Nana Akufo-Addo, the petitioner, came out openly and accepted the verdict, and also conceded that he now accepts President Mahama as president and would not be looking further for a review. And then in the evening, we had the president himself come out and congratulate all and sundry and all Ghanaians, and then ask for unity, and also indicated that now we must push on and get on with the issue of nation building. So all told, a very good day all round in terms of what happened. I think that it's important to note that even though people talk of a petition, for the layperson to best understand it, I think it's better to say that there were 6 petitions as opposed to 1. Because there were 6 headings under the single petition. And any win by the petitioners on any one would have led to some re-election either at the polling station level or even in some regards, possibly to a whole re-election taking place. So what people have to understand is that there were 6 separate petitions, and any one of them could have led to a decision where we would have gone for a re-election. But on 3 of them, all the judges unanimously agreed that they were non-starters. So the issue of serial numbers, the issue of location of polling stations or duplicate numbers on polling stations were all unanimously dismissed. Then the other 3, you had a 6-3 majority on 1 of them, and then a 5-4 majority on 2 of them. So all told, there was never a time that the petitioners had a majority. And therefore, based on that, it was clear that the petition could not succeed on any of the separate limbs that existed. And that, in sum total, is what happened yesterday. So you could look at it and say, well, they came close on 2, were quite a distance in 1, and were totally off the mark on 3 of the claims that they put up. And so based on that, there is some justification, I guess, for the claim in terms of at least 2 of them, we would say, or possibly 3. And no justification for any of the other 3 that were actually brought. Tactically, we will go into that sometime. Once we've got the judgment, then the issue of tactics as to whether the fact that they almost threw the kitchen sink into the case, as opposed to being very clear and specific in what they required, may have been maybe tactically a better option. Having said that, hindsight is always a beautiful thing. And so we will do, once we get the full judgment, we can do a proper post-mortem. But the important thing is the reaction of Ghanaians, and we have to commend both sides with regard to the situation we are in now, because all the talk about peace has definitely sunk in. It was very important, and I think that credit must be given to Nana Addo for conceding very early, because the moment he got back to his residence, he had the press conference. And so if anybody was even thinking about anything, if your leader comes out and says, look, I'm not happy, I don't necessarily agree with the decision, but I accept it, then you have no basis. What if you wanted to even get upset or fight about it? Who are you fighting for and for what? So I thought that it was timely, the fact that he conceded that early and actually made it clear that they were not going to go for a review, because there were alternatives. I mean, he could simply have said, look, I'm waiting for the final judgment and then I'll make a decision one way or the other. So that, I think, has helped diffuse any potential situations, because be that as it may, I think that aspect of the timing of it was very good.
Right.
The language also used, where the moment he left, he had actually phoned the president and then talked about conciliation in terms of, now let's get on with nation building and let us look towards 2016 in terms of his party, was also useful, because it meant that as far as he was concerned, and the party for which he's the leader, or was the leader up to yesterday, it meant that he had drawn a line in the sand. And that, I think, was very useful for Ghana. I also think that the manner in which the NDC leadership also dealt with it, in terms of calming down too much euphoria. Yes, people went to the headquarters and celebrated and jubilated, and that, I think, was in order. But it wasn't something that was spread across the whole of the city, and for that matter, in other parts of Ghana. It was all kept in very close quarters. Yes, be happy, yes, celebrate. But it was, at no point did I see gloating, where people would gloat at the opponent or say this, that, or the other. So, as a people, Ghana has definitely come out tops. And the rest of Africa must be wondering, what are we made of? I mean, the kind of stories and things people were talking about have not materialized. And the president came out yesterday and also gave out his speech, talked about unity, commended the judges. And a big factor that for me has come out of all this is that the judiciary, which is one of the main infrastructure blocks of governance, has come out trumps and have regained a lot of ground that had been lost in the past with regard to usurping their rights.
Right. Now, you've spoken about a number of things. I would want us to look at them one after the other. The NDC was expecting victory, or let's say the respondents were expecting victory, but it's almost like a hands-down victory. Was it the kind of victory you anticipated?
There was no middle road. You see, with regard to this petition, it's almost like an election in itself because there is no silver medal. There's only gold. If the respondents win on, the petitioners won on any ground, if they lost 5 and just won on 1, you would have to have some form of a re-election. So it was an all or nothing situation on any of the counts. So that's why we say it was a hands down victory, because they didn't win on any. And that's why some people even go around saying, look, it was a 9-0 victory. If you asked a single question, was John Mahama made the president, and was he required to rule this country? Then regardless of the permutations or how many this thing, you can say yes, it was a 9-0, because at the end of the day, the decision was John Mahama is the president, and there's no need for any re-election. But that is not the way the decision was made. The decision was made on each separate strand. So for 3 of them, it was unanimous. Everybody agreed that, look, there's nothing here. And then for 1 of them, it was a 6-3 decision. Right. And then for 2 of them, it was 5-4.
Right, right. Now, awaiting the full judgment,
yes.
we expect to see some suggestions of some reforms, especially within the electoral process. What kind of reforms do you expect would be suggested in the full judgment?
I'm expecting some reform, but I don't think the reform lies strictly with the EC. One of the biggest reforms within the political parties is, what are you going to do with your polling agents? Because they are not exalted observers at all from what we've seen. They play a role. They must become interested in what is happening at that polling station, not only with regard to what happens nowadays, where they only concentrate on the vote, the count, 1, 2, 3. That is why if you look at the challenge, at no point were the petitioners able to challenge the part of the sheet that dealt with the actual figures of people that voted and counted. But it appears that the polling agents didn't take a lot of interest in the first part of the administrative part of the sheet. And therefore, if things went wrong there, they should have been in a position to point it out. They must actually possibly be given the right to look at things before they are signed off, or before each one is given a copy to check. And they are technically, before you sign, you have the ability to look and see whether you're satisfied. So why people couldn't notice that maybe the figure which says the number of people related to vote is 4 and 200 people have voted, so there's a mistake, is a question which polling agents should be able to answer, because you cannot it is not by mistake that they are supposed to sign, as well as presiding officers. And therefore, the parties have a part to play in terms of reform and training, and the EC also has a part to play in terms of training for its polling agents. So when people talk of reform, what other forms of reform are there? I mean, yes, there are things that have to be tightened, I agree, and possibly when they put a list in front of me, I'll say, okay. But at the moment, they are not as far-reaching. There's more emphasis on strengthening what exists, rather than saying that you necessarily need reform. And that, for me, strengthening means more training for the staff who are temporary, and also from the parties as well, more training for what your polling agents should be looking for, and then more familiarity with the biometric machine, because it gives you a lot of information if you ask for it. So all this should become part of how we operate. But I don't see that there is, the way people talk about it, maybe I missed the point, but the way people talk about it, I'm not totally convinced that it's a wide-ranging type reform, but maybe I tell a lie.
I remember during the back and forth with the EC in the witness box, there were calls for the fact that the tenure of the EC should be looked at again. You know, now the case is over. What are your thoughts on that? Should we now begin to look at this as one of the areas we would intend to tighten?
Well, I think that a lot of thought has to go into that possible option. And the reason I say that is that the Electoral Commission or Commissioner is an independent party. And with hindsight, we are not a country where one party has not handed over to another party before. So if you really want to be objective about it, we've had an EC that has worked and has brought us from 1992 to the present day, changing from one party to another and then back to another political party. So we must give them credit. And that is why I'm saying, yes, people are knocking the EC on certain things that were asked. Reform is talked about. Let's see what you're talking about. One of the issues that might come up is, look, when you're filling out the pink sheet, maybe 8 names is too much. Maybe it should only be 5, so that when the person writes on the top, you can, because a lot of the sheets were not legible. And nobody even took into account, and now I can speak about it because the judgment is out. But look, if I was at a polling station and I was given the last sheet, and I picked that last sheet and I say, I can't read it, and I went to my colleague who got the first sheet or the second sheet, and I said, oh, tell me what is on it. And he tells me, and I begin to write on that sheet.
Right.
It may not conform with what you have exactly on your sheet. So if you say 24 and I write 24, but I write it in words or I write it in a figure, whereas the original is actually in words, when you look at the 2 sheets, you're going to have a difference. So a lot of the differences may just have come because people couldn't read what they had and then started writing their own entries based on what somebody was saying. And if somebody says, oh, look, 800, and you put 80 and forget to put the other 0, it has become 80. Now you give it to your political party, they look at it, they photocopy it. Now the photocopy doesn't gel with the original that was brought by the EC. And then all of a sudden, all manner of suspicions go out. Somebody tampered with it, this person has done a duplicate, that. All these are necessary because maybe 8 is too many. They should make it 5, or so that when whatever happens, when you write on the top sheet, the bottom one definitely gets. So these are little.
How soon do you think we should have that discussion?
IPAC will do it. I mean, that is what IPAC is about. And people should not forget that our EC has done very well, because the electoral process is a dynamic process which changes at each election. There is no single election we've had where a new factor has not been introduced. So for example, when we had elections in 1992, there were no photo IDs. There were just ID cards, and we used opaque ballot boxes. Representations were made to the EC. 96, we went to see-through ballot boxes. By 2000, and then we brought in photo IDs, black and white. By 2000, we had moved to color photo IDs, and other changes had also come in. We brought seals in to seal the ballot boxes, which were not there. So, and by 2008, we had brought in the 2012, we brought in the biometric. There hasn't been a single election where the EC has not improved. They may get a plethora of things that people want changed.
A few challenges
6,
here and there.
And they might say, okay, look, what they do is you normally say, we'll take the top 2 serious matters, and because any change involves funding, and you must know that if you don't have the amount of money to do all of them at the same time, you do it by stages. So let us not look at the reforms that are being asked as something that is new. We've always had reform, and that is the point. It's just that this case has highlighted a lot more. But for me, as I say, the greatest highlight has been on the role of the polling agent and the presiding officers.
Did we venture into BVR too quick?
No, I think not. I think it was appropriate. I think that if you remember, one of the calls that was made at the time was for verification to also be done.
Right.
And some of us envisaged the problems that would arise and said, perhaps not just yet, but the petitioners, for that matter, were actually quite clear and made it a big issue that they wanted verification. And that was brought in. And that's why the no verification, no vote came in. And it is significant that no one, notwithstanding what was written on the sheet or whatever, no one has actually been brought forward who said, look, I did vote, but I didn't go through the verification process. That, for me, is quite significant, because if you're able to find 5, 10, 15 people who said, look, well, when the machines broke down, we were 15 people who were allowed to vote without the machine, then you had a case. But that didn't happen. They were looking just on the face of the pink sheet. So for me, I think that, yes, there are potential areas of reform. Reform is not new to the EC. Reform is not new to the elections of Ghana. But we have to now look at it more globally. And I think that a lot of lessons have been learned. And obviously, when we get to the next election, what is important, though, is there is this desperation when elections take place for results to immediately announced. With some of the vigilance that is now required, people should not expect results to be coming within a short space of time. Because if you have to, if you turn around and say in your reforms, well, we want the returning officer, who is Dr. Afarijan, to look at every pink sheet. He told you he'll do it, but I'll give you your results in 3 months. Because I have 26,000 pink sheets to look at. Can we afford it? So was it a legitimate request at the point that he should see the pink sheets? No. That's why he has agents. What is required is that the agent should be trained more and or better than they were. And maybe the standard and the qualification of people involved in it.
Right.
I might be a good academic, but I may have nothing to do or never like maths and just got through my maths.
Maybe we should go E now. You think we have the time to be able to go E so that the results are just immediately collated and then the EC can go through quicker than...
But we all use computers as separate political parties. We know the results before they are even announced. We collate our results that way. And the EC also uses computers. But there has to be the paper trail. So when you say go E, what exactly do you mean? Because we already do it. I mean, at what level? Even when we wanted biometric, you remember at one point the petitioners or the NPP came out that we, the NDC, were in connivance with a particular group who were in charge of software, and we were in a house changing figures. How or why? And the house was barricaded and people demonstrated just because of E. And people thought that people could do things with E. There was absolutely no truth to it. To date, it has never been proved.
Right.
So for me, it's important that, yes, you can go E, but the paper trail must also be there. People want to see on the blackboard when they go to the collation center what votes were given. They want to be able to do the addition. And it's good for it to be written up there, because when you have your pink sheet and you're from a collation center, your polling agents have brought you and you are the one in charge, you can check whether the figures given to everybody is correct. When it's E, even if you put it on the screen, you have to be careful that the addition is, so do the manual. Say, no, this is wrong. It happened in Kwabinya. That is not right. This is not right. I don't agree with it. This was a different figure. And they changed and changed. In the end, they got what the figure was right.
Right. Let me just remind our viewers that I have with me Alex Segbefia. He is a lawyer and a former deputy chief of staff. Gabi Otredako, who is executive director for Dankwa Institute, should join us, but we're unable to raise him on the telephone. So we'll just continue the discussion and perhaps wrap up quickly. The justices have said that going forward, elections in the country would not be the same. I mean, there have been so many reading into it, whether or not it's for a good cause or it's for a bad cause. The fact that now there'll be so much, I want to make sure the right thing is being done, and someone wants to hurry up and collate results and all of that. How do you see 2016 election, general election, changing?
Well, I think that if for nothing, everybody is now more aware of the electoral process. We know what happens now at polling stations. We know what figures are important. We know how many or how to check what ballot sheets have come in, whether there's a unique stamp that the presiding officer has. Is my ballot sheet been stamped with it before I go and vote? So there is a better general perception or idea of how the whole voting process is conducted, the part the EC plays, how they order material for the elections, the difference between the relevance of pink sheet numbers as opposed to those of the ballot papers, and how they are logged. So if for nothing at all, when somebody goes to a polling station now, he has a better idea of what is happening. And that is enough to say that elections will never be the same, because you can't cheat anybody. People are very clear. They know when they look on a pink sheet what they should be looking for. Some of the things on the pink sheet should have been omitted, as you said, with the C1 and whatnot, because but because they had already been printed, they were used. It created a problem for the EC. So we must be very clear when we print what should be there. Every box that is there should have a relevance. If not, it should not be there.
Absolutely. I'll come back to you, and then we'll wrap up with your prescription for the NDC from now till 2016 elections, actually. But let's go to the telephone where my colleague Sairam Ablade Souza is joining us from Georgia in Ketu South in the Volta region. Let's gauge the mood after the Supreme Court verdict just a day afterwards. Hello, Abla.
Hello, Kalini.
Right. Well, what can you tell us about, Georgia, where you are at the moment?
Georgia is calm. Shops are closed. People are going about their business. It really doesn't seem like anything has happened in this. Just yesterday. Before coming to Georgia, I went to Qatar, and things are pretty normal there as well. Aflau has come back to itself. As of yesterday, there weren't that much people around Aflau and around the border. Things were kind of normal. I spoke to a freight forwarder who said import and export goods are not moving that much, but he hopes that from today everything will come back to normal. I spoke to the acting police commander of Aflau district, that is Daniel Janche, ASP Daniel Janche, who tells me they will still keep the security men in the area. They will still be monitoring the area, then be patrolling every now and then.
Right.
And if they pick up anything, they'll let us know. Right. The Assistant Controller of Immigration, Julius Bogla, also says they are going to keep the beaten points at the border in check. So relatively, everything is okay here.
Right. Thank you very much, Abla. Abla de Souza is Joy News reporter. She joined us from Georgia in the Ketu South in the Volta, Ketu South constituency in the Volta region. But I still have former Deputy Chief of Staff, also lawyer Alex Segbefia here with me. We'll wrap up quickly as far as our conversation on the ruling yesterday is concerned. So going forward, what will be your prescription for the NDC, your party, from now till 2016?
Well, we, as a party, we are going to soon have, or early next year, have our national elections. We are in the process of sorting out our constituency elections, then the regional elections, and then finally the national elections. So change is already taking place within the party. The same will apply inevitably to the MPP as well, or for most political parties. And then we will know the teams that are going to actually take us into the 2016 election from the party point of view. And then we have to work at it. As a government, we have had 8 months of slow progress because of this court case. And that was one of the downsides. The upside was, yes, rule of law, democracy has thrived, and we've come out well. The downside was, whether we like it or not, it has affected our economy and also our growth rates, etc., etc. We now have to turn our attention to serious nation building, and making sure that we look at our manifesto really closely, what we've promised Ghanaians and make sure that we deliver it in the next 3 months, for 3 years, 4 months.
Right.
That is left of our tenure in office, and then be ready for the election in 2016.
Right. And so the NDC going into 2016 would be a different, the psyche will be different from the NDC that went into 2012?
No, same psyche, only more vigilance. If anything at all as I keep pointing out, the major lesson is look. Let's be clear, if your polling agents are not awake, don't go and cry tomorrow to the court.
I see. Right.
Everybody must be vigilant at the polling station. And once that is clear, all good things follow from there.
Right. Thank you very much, Alex, for your time this afternoon. It's been totally fantastic.
Thank you.
Nice seeing you and nice talking to you. It was amazing. So we've been talking to Alex Segbefia. He is a former Deputy Chief of Staff, and he's also a lawyer. And it's been totally fantastic with him in the studio. But let's now go to the rest of our stories. And quickly, after losing out on a crucial Supreme Court ruling that could have sent him to the Flagstaff House's President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo announced his intention to break away from active politics. Now, he made this announcement at his Nima residence in Accra in the presence of several dejected supporters. This announcement comes after a 9-member panel of Supreme Court justices dismissed a petition brought by 3 stalwarts of the opposition New Patriotic Party who alleged fraud during the 2012 presidential elections.
I'm sure there are many people wondering what I envisage for my political future. I intend to take some time out of the hurly-burly of politics, get some rest, reflect, and then announce whatever decision I come to in the not-too-distant future.
You're welcome back. And in some business news, Chairman and CEO of Brian Tracy International says the verdict given by the Supreme Court's justices on the landmark election petition was the right one for the country's democracy. He added Ghana's thriving economy needs more hands to achieve its maximum potential. He was speaking to Matilda Nyakwa Dennis.
Visiting the country for the 3rd time during a very trying period in Ghana's democracy, Brian Tracy shared his views on the verdict given by the Supreme Court justices.
The court would come down with the decision that it came down, is to throw out an election based on a lot of unclear speculations and accusations would be too traumatic for Ghana. So I think that the court made the right decision in upholding the existing presidency. And if people aren't happy with that, they will get a chance at the next election.
Brian Tracy is in the country to train professionals on building a high-profit business with emphasis on the keys to increasing sales and profitability in any market. The training, in partnership with Quantum Shift Coaching Solutions, seeks to bring out the best in employers and their employees.
What we do exactly in Quantum Shift is not just when we say business training or corporate, it's a bit more than that, because we try to awaken the potential or realize the potential in each person, and that will help you create so many possibilities in your life to express yourself, to enjoy life, to live a better life, to work better.
The mission of Quantum Shift is to help realign the corporate culture of organizations with their highest purpose through a quantum shift in thinking.
And our businesses came to a standstill in the capital as most traders decided to stay at home to witness the verdict of the election petition. A tour around the central business district of Accra saw several shops closed down, and the few which opened recorded very low sales.
The Judgment Day was virtually a holiday for businesses in the capital. Although a Thursday, one could easily mistake it for a weekend. The designated 100 meters radius around the Supreme Court as a no-go area announced by the police administration affected businesses around the highest court of the land. All offices within the area were closed to the public. The dull atmosphere impacted on businesses at the Central Business District of Accra, noted for its bustling activities. Majority of traders abandoned their wares and stalls. The usual busy streets with human and vehicular traffic was free with just a few hawkers making sales out of the few shoppers in town. Some traders and shoppers expressed disappointment at the turn of events in town.
Today is not be declared as holiday, so there's nothing makes me to stay at home. I have to come and do my business, okay? And at the same time, I see the shops are closing. And when people are passing by, in fact, I can see that people are fear that this will bring something, panic or something, fear on them. So most of the shops did not open. But I particularly, I'm not afraid because government has not declared as holiday. So nothing can cause me to stay at home. I have to come and do my business. So I might have something in my pocket, okay?
So how has trading been like for you?
Well, today, people is not in town, so it's moving smoothly, but not too much as ordinary days.
Some bankers were in operation, but patronage was low.
Moment, it's not like the way things have been, or people have been patronizing the bank or withdrawing and depositing money around, but it's just like a holiday. Sometimes you can experience queue in the banking hall or something, but today it has been empty by people patronizing one by one. Like you see people coming in one and go. Shops, everything has been closed down.
Profits for businesses might have waned on the Judgment Day, but it appears traders would rather lose for a day than to ignore witnessing this historic landmark.
Now, Joy News' Oblade Souza has been following events at Akachi on the verdict and aftermaths, where she reports the security and immigration officials at the border, especially were particularly following proceedings on Joy News on Multi TV.
The street is very, very calm. There is no panic. There is no anxiety. Everybody is going about his normal duties. People have gone to work. People have gone to market. There is no panic at all. The place is very calm. Okay. Yeah, you know, as we did during the election, we did it before, during, and after. We prepared ourselves. We were everywhere. This also is equally an event that really would cause the public to be a bit anxious. So the police administration has put measures in place and we have been giving strict directives. As you can see from my men, they are all dressed up, combat ready. Early this morning, we went as far as to the end of our jurisdiction, that's St. Paul's area towards Agbuzume. We went to Adafianu area towards Kita. Then we came back through town to the border. Now we are back to base and we are ready waiting for any eventuality. Then we move. But we don't anticipate any problems. But as I told you, we only have to be combat ready for any eventuality.
Let's do some news from across the globe and make a first stop in DR Congo, where the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has appealed to Rwanda's president for restraint amid escalating tensions with the neighboring DR Congo. Edmond Mule, Ban's assistant, reportedly told UN members M23 rebels had been seen firing into Rwanda He spoke to President Paul Kagame after Rwanda accused DR Congo of deliberately bombing its territory, killing a woman and wounding her baby. Their troops have been pounding rebel positions on the Congolese side of the border with Rwanda since last week. The UN peacekeeping mission in DR Congo recently deployed a new 3,000-strong intervention brigade to tackle the rebels. Now, French President François Hollande says a vote by UK MPs against involvement in military strikes on Syria has not changed France's resolve to take firm action. He said all options were being considered and that a strike within days was not ruled out. His comments came after U.S. Defense Secretary Chuck Hagel said Washington would continue to seek a coalition for possible military action. However, Germany said it would not participate in military action. He added that each country is sovereign to participate or not in an operation that is valid for Britain as it is for France. Included that while all options for intervention were on the table, no decision would be taken without the conditions to justify it. He ruled out strikes while the UN inspectors were in Syria. However, he did not rule out the possibility that military action could be taken before next Wednesday, when the French Parliament is due to debate the issue. That's it for the segment. Rashida Baba Kadiri comes up with sports.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Rashida Baba Kadiri. Time now for us to talk sports, and it's proudly brought to us by Tigo. Smile, you've got Tigo. Now, Schalke New Fear, German Bundesliga inside, have confirmed that AC Milan and Ghana striker Kevin Prince Boateng has had medicals at the German club this morning. Now, German tabloid Bild, which initially broke the news of the Black Stars returnee's medical reports, that Schalke News here have paid AC Milan 12 million euros for Boateng, and he's set to sign a 3-year contract with an option for a 4th year. The 26-year-old joined Milan in a co-ownership deal after South African World Cup after the 2010 South Africa World Cup, and leaves after making 100 appearances, scoring 17 goals in the process. Boateng's last game for Milan was in the UEFA Champions League, where he grabbed a brace for the Italian side in a 3-0 win over PSV Eindhoven last Wednesday. Boateng will likely be presented at a press conference later this afternoon. So that's the news. Ghana midfielder, that's Kevin Prince Boateng, or Ghana striker Kevin Prince Boateng, has signed a 3-year contract with Schalke New Fear, German Bundesliga inside. Now, talking about transfers, Christian Atsu has also signed a deal with Chelsea, but he won't be at Chelsea this season. He is going on loan to Vitesse Arnhem in Norway. So Chelsea have actually landed Christian Atsu, that's the Ghanaian midfield prodigy. He's been signed by Chelsea, but he's going on loan to Vitesse Arnhem. And then there's also some shock news about Emmanuel Agyemang-Bidu, because he is moving from Italian Serie A side Udinese to Stoke City in the English Premiership. So Emmanuel Agyemang-Bidu also sealing that move there. And another man who is set to move before the transfer window closes by midnight on Monday is Ghana striker Albert Adoma. He is also on his way to Liverpool in the English Premiership. So do stay and stay, because we'll have details of all of these moves and more coming up in our subsequent bulletins on Joy Sports. My name is Rashida Baba Kadiri.
Now let's do some showbiz news. And ensuring that there was absolute peace within and around the Supreme Court as the election petition verdict was read, security was not only about the presence of officers at strategic places, but also showed in their dressing as they outdodged their latest security gear. It was obvious it was indeed Judgment Day couture.
God bless our homeland. In anticipation of anything untoward during the reading of the election petition verdict, everyone in Ghana did anything to ensure continued peace, with our security forces spearheading with appropriate measures in place. On the day, stakeholders of the petition arrived at the court premises prepared for the outcome. Well, at least by their dressing you could guess. Most were in simple attires, with a few of them in symbolic colors or keeping up with fashion. The most fashionable for the day, I guess, will go to the Ghana National Police, as they leave a no stone unturned, dressed accordingly. In fact, they looked so prepared for anything untoward, but so interesting in their latest security attire, what I have termed Judgment Day couture. Don't be surprised if, just like the camouflage, this also becomes the fashion in the few days or months or years, who knows?
You can sign on to that couture when you sign on to the Ghana Police Service. But let's do something else from the Big Brother Africa, the chase. And Ghana's rep, Elikem Kumoji, has arrived in the country and has expressed his heartfelt gratitude to all for their support and votes. Well, I will bring you those pictures later. That's the recap of our headlines, and it's the day after the landmark election petition verdict, and forging ahead, we brought you a digestion of the ruling, and we also examined some reactions afterwards. Having stated his acceptance of the Supreme Court verdict, Nana Akufo-Addo announced a breakaway from active politics. Business activities in town came to a halt as at yesterday, and we also reached our correspondents around town and in the regions on whether activities have bounced back. Business and economic consultant Brian Tracy says yesterday's verdict is good for the country's economy. My name is Kemini Nyamani Amana. Have a lovely weekend.